Hey, Dennis, thanks for joining me today. As a way to get us started, give us some background about yourself.
Well, my name is Dennis Fulton. I'm with R3 Risk Redistribution in the National Accounts Department. I've been with Bunzl for 15 years as of last week. Grew up in Detroit, Michigan, in a family-owned company of cleaning supplies. That's how I entered this whole universe. My father owned a company along with my mother, and my brother worked for us. And through the years, I migrated to Chicago, working for a contract cleaning company, and eventually ended up at Bunzl. So I've been here for 15 years.
Nice. So after college, did you start off in sales right away or what?
So, my sales background started probably when I was around 10 years old. I used to cut grass and going door to door, and $7 a lawn. And if I could pick up a lawn every day, that was $50 a week for me with tips if I didn't screw something up, which quite happened back when you're that age. But I used to push my lawnmower down the block. Later on in high school, I got a job as a phone solicitor. So I phone solicited for probably about 3 years for setting appointments up in Lakes of the North. It's a small town outside of Gaylord in northern Michigan, and really, really enjoyed it, and realized that everybody's equal on the other side of the phone. So it was a good way to start a sales career and overcome objections and have a lot of fun with it as well. Now they call me, so I'm probably more mean to them than they were to me back then, but it was a lot of fun. But I did well at phone soliciting, and my family, I had the opportunity to start my own company with a carpet cleaning company, phone soliciting for one of the local people that clean carpet, and we would call homeowners. Then I realized, why am I doing the work? I can hire people to work for me. And before long, my mother realized I was making some good money using the basement with the 3 telephones, and said, this isn't going to work. You got to run this like a business, means you're going to pay like a business. So you can start paying rent and this and that. And before long, she said, gave me an opportunity to go to college. And she said, or you can go to college. So that's how I ended up in college. So sales really came first, college came after. And but I was always into the sales aspect of engaging with people.
I was always surprised how when people start going into their backgrounds and talking about sales, they start really early. A lot of good salespeople start early because that's, it's been easy. It's a fun thing for them. And then they get into the dial-ups, right? Phoning for the dollars. And that's another area that people get into. They realize after a while, some stay in it for quite a few years and some don't, because of the fact that there's more opportunity out there than being on the phone, making dial-ups and so on. But I'm interested in, the carpet cleaning industry. Did that give you any skill set? I mean, were the customers different from what you do today? Obviously, we know they're different, but did that teach you anything that you brought over here to R3 with you?
Well, I think big is what it taught me. So I was supposed to be the intent was for me to call homeowners to get them to book appointments. And I realized, why am I calling homeowners when a lot of people are rehabbing houses? So I started calling contractors who didn't want to clean houses, booked up the carpet cleaner. And that's how I made the money, is thinking outside the box, doing something a little non-traditional, pushing the envelope a little bit, and it worked well.
Every salesperson has to bring that innovation somewhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be fun. And it was fun doing that as well. So
what do you enjoy most about sales? Do you like the competition part of it? Do you like the fact that you can kind of schedule your own time? Do you like, just having to be in charge of your own destiny?
I really like sales because I'm learning more using sales and being part of sales. I learn more about myself. I learn about the impact that I learn about others, the impact that I have on others. And it really, I'm passionate about it. The feeling of interacting with people and really understanding what drives a person, how my actions can change that person, or in positive or negative direction, and the influences I have on it. And it's amazing, as I grew through the ladder and the different roles that I played at Bunzl, how much I've grown as a person. I used to reflect and read a lot of books on how I can improve myself. And then I used to read a lot of books and try to understand how other people, why they're the way they are. And then I understand that, the impact that I have on those people. And now it's, how can I change the impact that I have on people by being myself and changing the things that I do. So all of that really fascinates me. In the sales aspect, it's changed the way I sell. It changes how I sell. It also brought me to that higher level, so I can adapt a lot quicker to which we talked briefly earlier. From the C-suite to the street level, I can
Right.
really move my abilities and from all the way from the top to the bottom, and really speak confident on all those levels. Because I understand myself a lot better. I understand the person I'm usually talking to, and the impact that I can have on that person as well, and how I can change that.
Yeah, and we have a lot of verticals in our company in this industry, actually, where you have food service, you have grocery, you have food processing, you have retail, you have safety. These are all verticals that, even though we share horizontally the products that we all use in our industry, there are different personalities from one of the vertical to the other vertical. You started off, and that's where you're at today, is with R3. You started off as a sales rep, and you talked about making an impact. What was the impact you made, with customer, with that level, when you were at sales rep versus you got into sales leader, and then now you're into national account? But I'm going to get back down to sales rep. What was the impact you made there with the customer?
Well, I spent a lot of time with the customer. So I spend as much time as the customer. And it wasn't until I was a sales manager I realized how much I was spending with the customer, and how not so many people were seeing the customer when I become a sales manager. And then I always thought I was kind of a hybrid between technology and actually seeing the customer, and digging in and getting in the dirt. So I was able to, if the company didn't have the tools, I created the tools. I used Microsoft Access and did a lot of spreadsheet stuff that we now find in Beacon or some of our platforms that we have to get information. We didn't have that back then. So I created to make my job easier and faster and more efficient. So from going back to the old GPS days, I would set my GPS, and with all my customers in it, would say 1 mile away, 2 mile away, I would hit it. And you can go see a lot of customers. And in the market I was in, that wasn't typical. In the New York markets, absolutely. It was the standard when I ended up going to work with the people in New York. They would see a lot of customers and kind of had their little routes in their head. But I realized how different I was, and the path was different. And I needed to, and I've learned, because I even though I thought I was an effective sales manager, I could have did a lot of things different. And what I didn't look at as much is the other people's perspective, and how I could have changed how I reacted to them to get them to do the same thing, but just a different approach. And either I didn't have the expertise or maturity at the time to realize that what I was asking was huge changes. I was
Right.
knocking people out of the comfort zone, trying to get them out of the office in front of the customer. And I was doing whatever I could as a manager to make that happen. And it wasn't always right, but it was the right thing to do, and what is still needed this day. I mean, we still
Yeah.
need FaceTime with the customer, and obviously the world's changed. So whether it's a Zoom call or face-to-face or a phone call, people need that interaction in our industry to keep that stuff going and keep those boxes flowing.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you look at your personal career, and also the career about some of the cohorts and your teammates around you, a lot of times the newer reps, when you're, the newer to the business, a lot of times when we're on sales calls, we don't get into that discovery phase real deep with the customer. I like the fact that you said that you like to dig deep. And a lot of times we don't get there with the customer, because we get into a sales call, and what happens? We put on the sales face, we put on the sales voice, and the customer immediately goes, "Oh, okay, I know what you're here for. You're trying to sell me something." But I think the successful salesperson, the sales rep, spends a lot of time in getting to the customer's desired outcome. Do you feel that way, or?
Yeah, but sometimes you need to let them know what the outcome could be and what they really should be striving for. But you do have to be careful on how you approach and provide that information as well. And that's something I learned as well over time, that sometimes customers aren't ready to change, so you have to be there and slowly give them that information. But when you have fact-based knowledge by working say the restaurant, or walking in that restaurant, looking in the restroom, and seeing the boxes and the containers and ordering the carryout before you go into it, you'll have a lot more credibility when you're speaking with that owner or that CEO or that C-level suite when you spent some time in those areas. So before you call on somebody, and Pat, yeah, I know you teach it all the time. You got to do a little bit of homework first. What's their website look like? And,
Right.
you'll still get those customers. What do you know about us? And, my common answer is, listen, the only thing I really know about you is what I read off your website and FD reports and Cleveland Research and Technomics and what I can find. But I'm really here today to hear you tell me that story and learn that way. Because if you start repeating up, they have their own website. That's what they want you to think. But really, what do you want to hear from them, and you want to hear from those people from their perspective, not off a website. But it's a good way to go in and provoke those questions and start those questions.
Yeah, and of course you have to get beyond the website. That there's a lot of blind spots you can't see on a website about a customer. So that the in person, the talking, the conversations you have with the customer. You mentioned now. How was the transition from sales rep to sales leader? There's a big leap from a sales rep to a sales leader in this organization. What did you see? What was the epiphany for you? Did you see that there was more to life on the leadership side, or you just wanted to just delve into something, a more bigger challenge?
Well, I've always been a proponent of learning, and I guess with apps being out there, I always have this little slogan saying, there's going to be an app for that. So I don't want to be replaced by an app. Right. So I always look way to learn and grow. And, the leadership that we had and the time we had when I became a sales manager, all the sales managers across the country came up with this playbook, and they all sat down and said, hey, what do we need? How do we get there? What do we need to do? And I followed that procedure. I followed it, and it was, this is what we're going to do. And I did everything. I had the courage to change, I guess, was one of the slogans we were using back then. I had the courage to change, and I made the change. But I did it, in some cases there were some casualties involved, because I was on a mission to make sure that we did the right thing, that we followed it. When people were using software and things that they shouldn't have been using, I took it away, and I said, nobody's going to tell us. We had our programs to manage our CRM software. That's what we were supposed to use. I made sure that people used it, and you couldn't question it. And there's some things I could have taken back looking, right. back on that. But I learned from it. And I can tell you a lot of people that we still have in the company today that have grown up, that have hired right from the street, really got some good things in maintaining their calendars and using Excel. And why should it take you 5 hours to do a spreadsheet when you can do a VLOOKUP or something similar like that? Learn something new, learn something different.
Yeah, as sales leaders, you have to look at the total picture, especially when you have some reps, and we all have, ones that may be underperforming, and then you want to bring them up to the ones that are performing. Were those challenges that you had before too? I mean, did you see where you had to inflect more time, with a certain rep, and what were some of the things that you would use as a sales leader today?
Well, I would say in general, I realize that everybody is not in the right position all the time. We have really some brilliant people, but we put them in positions they shouldn't be. We put substandard reps, or reps that don't have skill sets in certain set of accounts and other ones in other sets of accounts. So sometimes we set our own people up to fail, and with commissions, and that was probably the biggest cultural shock, because all the way up until Bunzl, which was close to about 30 years, I did sales prior to being to Bunzl. I was on straight commission my entire life, so I didn't have a salary or a check. So going to management, you had salary plus bonus, which was a totally different way of looking things. But I realized the power of commissions and the things that I did when I was a sales rep and other ones were doing to get those commissions. And now I look back and say, well, I could have been a really rich salesman if I knew all those tricks and things to do to maximize those commissions. But I also look back and learn that, we really got a lot of great talent in the company if we put them in the right position. And in some cases, I took away accounts when they weren't being seen, but, it's those reps that lost those accounts focused on their existing ones, and they made more money than they did year before. Now, that never made them feel good about losing those accounts, but when it came down to it, it was refocusing those reps. And so, from a revenue and from a profit and from a success, I was successful, although I did rub people the wrong way during the process.
And you're going to, as being, a sales leader's always, there's always that chance, of rubbing somebody the wrong way because you have a philosophy that you want to instill in somebody. I mean, commissions, come on, they are the biggest motivator you can have. If you want to be in this business, something has to motivate you. And, being commissioned will do that for you. You talked about skill set. What skill set do you want to see in somebody? If you look, and not all of us are going to have the same skill sets, but is there a skill set that you look, for in somebody to make them, successful?
I mean, from a simplistic standpoint, I mean, willingness and ability. Do they have the ability to do it? Do they have the willingness to do it?
Yeah.
And do they have the willingness to learn that ability as well? So I think that's where it starts, and then really finding where they're a fit for position. But I think in most cases, if they're willing and they have the ability, or they're willing to learn those skill sets, I would bank on a lot of those people to do that if we put them in the right positions. But attitude is huge. And my challenges that I went through as a sales manager really paid dividends in national accounts, because I couldn't do it. I didn't have anybody reporting to me. I still don't have anybody reporting to me in national accounts. I have 200 plus bank of business, if you add up the numbers, approximately, that I'm overseeing directly or indirectly, but none of those people report to me. I mean, we have a decentralized national accounts department or company with, centralized relationships. And I learned that I got to get people to do things that they don't want to do, that they're not accustomed to, or additional work, or that don't report to me. So that sales manager struggles really benefited me, because it realized and taught me what I had to do to get things done and really treat the people and understand what's important to them. And to give a quick example, I mean, logistics, getting something fast out of one of our warehouse, not always the easiest thing in the world, because the first question is who's paying the freight? And you're saying, who cares who's paying the freight?
Right.
Well, I
Yeah.
tell you who cares. It's the warehouse manager cares who pays the freight. So if you're able to pay that freight and give them that money and say, hey, give me your GL code and I'll ship you the money to get that out the door, poof, it goes out. Boom, you got that solved. So there's ways to get things done, but it goes right back to the same thing. What's important to those people? And you got to start thinking about how do you work together to make those things happen, and look at those. So whether it's the person pulling the orders, stacking the orders, delivering the orders, placing the orders, or our reps in the field, you've got to be respectful of what they do and the time that they spend as well, and understand that.
Yeah.
They're on their schedule, not yours.
I like the statement you made about accountability and also ownership of accounts. When you are a sales rep, you have a lot of ownership to an account. And sometimes when you're asked to take the leap or the next challenge into sales leadership, you kind of get, well, I'm not going to be in control of my destiny because I'm giving away everything I've earned and worked on, because we're very territorial, right? Tribal on the accounts that we bring on, and we don't want to see that going away. Now transition all the way to where you're in national accounts, where you have, like you say, low accountability because of the fact to the customer, it's out of your control. How does that set well with you all the time? Or do you want to have more control? Or do you see the fact that lesser control is better than having more of a team atmosphere? Because you go from an individual contributor, right, as a sales rep, into a team contributor. And that's kind of a big leap, right?
Yeah, well, and I think in national accounts, you cannot, I don't believe one individual can make anything happen. You need the team, and it's the admin people at the national account office, it's the administrators, it's the warehouse people, it's the salespeople on the streets. Sometimes they just need to go see somebody just to go see them. They're like, but I don't have time to go see him. Well, I need you to go see him. I'm not going to get any more business out of it. I need you to go see them, and they do it. And when they do, it makes a difference. So we're changing perceptions, and we're changing some cases, some people's realities by working together as one. And I try to do my best to assist everybody and find out what's important to them, and how can I help you be a better rep? How can I help you make more money? How can I help you run that region better? What can I do? I look at my ARs and take ownership for all of it. Now, I take ownership for it, but I can't do everything. I can't
Right.
write up a thing. I can't pay an invoice. I can't fix a billing, but I can proactively look at that stuff and ask people to correct it or look at it as well. So working as a team and national accounts, since I've been there, and Scott Blanchard has a lot better story than I do, because and Bill Carter, and they had a real small skeleton crew in the very beginning of national accounts, and now we have a sizable crew. But our admin people are top notch, and Bren and really do a great job of what they do, communicating, and we've come a long way. So we really can manage those relationships at the high level, but it
Yeah.
still allows us to go into those, distributors and those restaurant accounts and other accounts to look at what they're buying and what they're selling. So we're connected from bottom to top and top to bottom. So
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
spread a little thinner, but we are working together and we do work as a team. And I love Toby's new strategy or new slogan. I think it's called "We Win as a Team." Is what he came up with at our last sales leaders meeting, and that was awesome.
And that is so true, especially in today, coming out of the pandemic. There was a big shift there to have that C-suite level client all the time, on these Zoom calls, because it affected their business a lot more. They were more aware during the pandemic of price increases, price changes, supply chain issues. And all of a sudden, when you're at the procurement level for a customer, they're getting all these increases. All of a sudden, somebody from the top goes, "Hey, what's going on here? I need to be more involved in this area." When you're in the industry where Bunzl has grown and R3 has grown dramatically as far as the scale of the company and the scope, so is our customer. When I've been in sales for 45 years, and I remember where you only had maybe one or two decision makers in any organization. As you, especially in national accounts, get into that enterprise account, that enterprise customer where there's at least 7, 8, 9 different decision makers, that can be a little difficult. And you have to make sure that you touch everybody in that organization, or else it's not going to fly, right?
Absolutely. And it has changed. And some of the things that, you think is trivial, some people just care about the price of the box, but I can tell you that's changed. And my conversations are less on price and more on packaging and the way things look and the way things feel and touch. And if there's a story behind it, even cutlery. I mean, nobody wants that cheap little crap cutlery. They don't want to pay a lot either, but at the same time, if they had a nice looking box with, some stuff in it, the same product in it, they would probably pay a little bit more, and you've got the executive chefs requiring and looking for higher end products. They spend millions and millions of dollars on a kitchen. Why do they want a brown corrugated film box in there when they can have something really fancy and something nice? And you ask the chef, well, what's the cost difference? Well, it's about $2 more a box, right? That's a lot of money. Well, to a chef, $2 is not much to have that impression when they have an open kitchen and you have people walking. Nobody wants to see that corrugated. So there's changes. And now you have decision makers coming out of school. And I think that more, they really look at that. I think that's really probably the biggest change I've seen. So you've got that element. Before it was price, quality, and, is it the right product for the right application? But now it's, does the box fit into what we do for a living? Do you want that broadliner straw box at the juice bar, or would you prefer to have something that reflects the juice bar to give it that feeling of fresh fruit? And you're changing perceptions with things that we've never done before. And to your point, I need a team, because you've got all those different people that we have to sell. And if I get the top door, the CEO on board, that's great, but they're not making decisions all the way down to those other things. And they're important decisions to be made.
Yeah. And see, and I've taken a real shift when I talk to suppliers, because I will interview suppliers and talk about, how they sell these items. You and I had this conversation offline about the whole chef analogy. If you have a high-end cutter box film that has a fancy logo on it or a nice look, you're not going to go into your customer and try to sell that to that security buyer who's just looking at price. We all get the price. We know that. We all get to the price issues because something has to cost something. But when you don't lead with the price, you need to go see other people in the organization. You need to go see that chef and show them. They're going to say, yes, I just spent, like you said, a couple million on my kitchen. I don't want that stuff being shown, because most of the kitchens now are exposed to the customer. As you said earlier, is that, people see it, your customers see it. So you want that really nice fancy box out there. In the food processing industry, where we talk to a lot of customers about certain products, and in grocery industry, there's a lot of sustainables and compostable items that are really, because legislation has forced customers or organizations like Bunzl to have to, they legislate laws that we have to go out there and start selling these products to customers. And there again, you're not going to go to that security bar that's looking at cost, because these are sometimes 10, 20, 30% more. So we have to teach newer salespeople, or even ourselves, that we have to go beyond that person. We have to go up to maybe that C-suite level type customer where they never have been before, right? I mean, it's important to do that.
Absolutely. And I think with, composting is a great issue. I mean, it's, in the past, if somebody wanted compostable stuff, you would show them, you would see, oh, it's BPI or it's compostable on the side of the cup, and you would show them the cup. And that's no longer the change. That's no longer the case. You have to find out, first of all, are they really going to compost it? And if they are, what composter are they going to use? And then finding out what hauler they're going to use to bring it there. And then find out, before you start showing products, what is acceptable for that compost center, to make sure you're showing products that are acceptable and can be composted at the same time. And so, but that's a whole new sales route that we didn't have to do in the past. You didn't, you had the recyclers, and you had, the blue box or the green box. You throw the garbage in one, wet waste, and then recycled in the other. And now you have this new bin, the compostable bin. But who's picking up that, and how are you keeping that clean and providing it, and all those elements as well? So it's another avenue, it's another change, but constantly educating yourself and learning more, and working with some of the alliances that we have in those categories, and the leads that we had, at our company, like Jennifer Mackey, and reading her stuff. And these are important changes that you're going to have to learn.
We as sales, yeah, absolutely right. I think we as salespeople, all of us, have to educate ourselves more because of the internet. Our customers know as much about our products as we do, but we have to know more, and we have to know about their business too, and making sure it's a fit. But to your point about the compostables, that's some areas when, after we came out of that pandemic, a lot of our customers, just because the internet, knew a lot more about products than some people have. And so when you talk about compostables, it's a very complex sell. But once you're educated on it, and I've talked to suppliers that when you want us to sell these and help you sell these items, we need to know how you would sell this item to a customer. And we also need to know who you're seeing within an organization, a customer's organization, because it's not going to be that procurement person that's just looking to reorder products. It has to be somebody above that, and that's been a hard sale, because now we are more in a consultative role versus a sales role. I mean, just my opinion.
I guess you could look at it. I think it's a hybrid of everything now. I think it's not one or the other. I think you have to have a lot of education behind your sale now. You can't just and it used to be, some people just want to grow revenue. It was that broad, and they didn't care how they got there. Now there's those, and I think you said there was like 9 levels of sometimes of people approving product. There's 9 opinions that you have now, and probably 5 of those are ones that probably make you uncomfortable because you don't have the knowledge, and most people don't. Composting and that whole compostable thing, I don't think anybody has it figured out. I mean, there's very few companies that have all the right products for a customer that wants to launch a compostable line of something. They're not going to match it up to their product because the scale's not there yet, but it'll be there one day. But we can educate ourselves on the substrates and understanding the difference between PET and PLA, for instance. And I'm going through that now. I'm learning from Nature's Works. Is one of the people I've been getting educated on. I'm learning how they can adapt those machines by switching it from PET to PLA. Is it something they can retroly do? What do they have to do to switch those machines to use a different substrate? It's understanding that so I can speak more intelligent in front of the customer as well, and understanding and watching the pricing of those products as well. And as it grows, is it going to go down? Is it going to go up? All those questions. So there's a lot more to it than there used to be. And is it going to comply with the law? And is the composter, PLA is one of the ones that most commercial composting facilities are accepting. So it's a safe bet, where molded fiber is still in a gray area at a lot of compostable facilities. But it's knowing that before you're presenting it to a customer, because just because it's non-intentional PFAS molded fiber does not mean that composting company is taking a chance in putting it into their compost.
Right. I spoke to an organization early this morning, and talked about compostables and what separates Bunzl from its competition, and why we want to be on the forefront of what I think is just starting to slowly evolve very quickly, if that's a term, but where it was a couple of years ago, not really on anybody's radar. Now it is, because of the legislation in all the states that's coming forth. You and I are in a very competitive industry, sales. There's a lot of competition. People can buy our products from everybody, whoever they want. They can buy them online. They can buy them from our competitors. What differentiates Dennis from your competitors?
I don't usually compare myself to the competitors as much as compare to myself. I look at myself and how I can improve and what I can do different. I watch competition out there. I sat in one of our competitors. They had a general session at one of the meetings I was just at. And, I made sure I was there to listen to what they're talking about and why they're talking about it. But I also, in my mind, I can role play about how a lot of times, not only ourselves, but other people are disconnected. And so I try to figure out how can I connect and how I would have did that message different and changed what they said or repositioned it. I've been told through my leadership that training that I go through now, that I have a very small, when it goes to feelings, is when you first hear something, goes feelings and then into fact and processing. It skips the feeling thing. So I'm very cold sometimes. And
Right.
it's nothing, I guess it is mental, right? It's in my brain. My brain works a little different than most people. I don't get upset and angry and very quickly, because I start processing the fact base of it. So when I even look at my customers, it's the words that they use and choice of words. I guess you could use the media. I mean, the newspapers and the way they position words. A high level, leader, said this, and this. Well, what's high level leader? I mean, it can
Right.
be anything. So it's so vague and so open. It's really crushing through that and getting right back to the facts. And so I think the difference is that I really do a good job of cleaning up the facts. I do my best of speaking facts before I open my mouth. I try to keep my mouth shut and listen more than I ever listened, to really understand, but I'm not afraid to share the hard truth. And in most cases, I feel I've been successful at the company. I get a lot of good feedback, and people call me and say, "Hey, Des, I want to talk to you because you can give me that straight truth, and we don't have to beat around the bush. You can tell me what's really going on there." And I think that's the difference, that
Yeah.
I'm able to do that from bottom to top, to flush out a lot of those things and perceptions and correct the record. I think the best leadership is the ones that get the best information. And there's a lot of leaders that can be great leaders and great visionaries, but if they don't have the facts and the real facts, and not misled facts, and not intention or not, but they really don't understand the facts, that's where the problems come in. So having the facts is important. So I guess facts is where I would differentiate myself from the competition, is I try to go right through that and say, listen, these are the facts.
If I had a nickel, for every time I heard somebody go, why are you successful? And a lot of people, well, Joe's successful because he has a lot of people that just like him. He's a likable guy. And I always say that people don't always buy from you because they like you. Okay. A lot of them do, but the really good customers that you've had long-term, they trust you. And that's where you just alluded to, is the trust. You bring the facts and they like that. Obviously, you're very successful in what you do to get to the point where you are with Bunzl R3. You've been very successful. So I appreciate your time today. You brought a lot of energy, and I know you personally, and I know that you always, in any circumstance, any situation, you always bring your A game, and that's important. And I trust you as a friend. I trust you as a colleague. And that's, again, why it's so important. But I appreciate your time today. How can people get hold of you and connect with you if they want to get hold of you, Dennis?
Well, they could go right to LinkedIn. It's Dennis Fulton, and on LinkedIn. So just reach out to me, R3 National Accounts, and look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Thank you.